Do it. Hey, Soli.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. First I want to say thank you for being here. This is my first time
So,
interviewing. I've been
tell
interviewing,
me,
so
tell me about yourself. Are you what year are you? What major are you?
I'm a political science and Spanish double major. I'm a senior at Winthrop, obviously. Actually, the reason why I was drawn to choosing you is because I think I want to join the Peace Corps next year, and I saw that you were a returned Peace Corps volunteer. So
Yeah, good for you.
yeah, so I think I want to go to Colombia. So I think it'll be fun.
There's a group that we have, a Charlotte Area Peace Corps Association, and I could probably put you in touch with people there. But I think there are some people who had been in Colombia
Oh, okay.
who around here. You might, if you're going to go there, and you know you're going to go there, you could talk to them.
Yeah, that's good.
Um, Yeah. Well, let me know when you're ready to do that. I'll put out a feeler.
Well, thank you. Okay, so first I just want to ask you to tell like the audience, they're not technically here, but they'll be watching later. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your job, who you are, stuff like
Okay. And who's your audience, by the way?
that. It's going to be first off the students in my class, but then also other political science students potentially.
Okay. I'm a political reporter for the Charlotte Observer. I started a while ago in Rock Hill working for the Herald and living about a block from Winthrop. I came to Charlotte in the early 80s and have more or less been covering politics ever since. So um, sort of happened into it by accident. I got it. My first job in Rock Hill was at the newspaper, and they needed a city hall reporter. And when you cover city hall, you cover politics. So I sort of started that way, and then the Observer hired me to cover politics in Rock Hill, and then it became politics in North Carolina.
Okay. Well, that was kind of feeds into my first question, which was what made you want to become a reporter, or and how has it impacted the way that you think about the political process?
Well, um, I wanted to become a writer, a reporter. Decided to do that after Peace Corps. Actually, on my way back from Peace Corps, I was in West Africa in the Peace Corps and 3 years. And then on the way home, kind of took a long, circuitous route home through Europe, and just sort of one day decided, it'd be kind of cool to be a journalist. I was reading a book by a journalist, and so I came back and went to graduate school at Illinois, and then after that, I went back east to Washington to look for work and did some freelancing there, and ended up getting a job in Rock Hill, and it was a good place to start out, a great place to live, and and I enjoyed coming to Charlotte a couple of years later. So it's been a good run.
Okay. And how many political conventions have you attended or covered?
I think about 8 or 9 that I've been to, and you can see on the wall back there, there's some posters, all from conventions, different conventions. But yeah, my first one was in 1988 when Michael Dukakis was nominated by the Democrats, and that was in Atlanta. And then I've been to, you know, pretty much every 4 years, been to one or both of the conventions since then. Although I was kind of glad to go to the one here in Charlotte this year because of the pandemic. I didn't want to be around a bunch of people who may or may not be wearing masks and may or may not have been safe. But so I did that from here. I covered that from here. We watched a lot more things are live streamed now on the online, and so that's pretty helpful. So the pandemic has obviously changed the way we do everything.
Yes. So what does a typical schedule covering a political convention look like for you in a normal year? For example, like in the 2016 election?
2016, I was in. You talking about the convention or the campaign? The
The
convention.
convention. Mhm. The convention.
Um, yeah, I was in Cleveland for the Republican convention in 2016, and there's pretty much there's stuff to do all the time. You kind of make a list of stories, and um, we're in Charlotte. We also were part of a bigger company called McClatchy. And they had a bunch of reporters there. So you try to, as a regional reporter like we are, you try to slice off some stories the national people aren't going to cover. So my colleagues from Washington covered, Trump and Ted Cruz and all that. But I went to, events for North Carolina delegates. I covered the North Carolina delegation, which made some news actually. Um, the chairman of the Republican Party was a Trump guy, and he flew his own plane down there up to Cleveland, and he flew some delegates with him. And turned out that a couple of the delegates were Ted Cruz fans, and they didn't really give up on him much. And so the chairman refused to fly them back. They were counting on a flight back. So he said, good luck getting home. And so they had to scramble for a ride. So you cover the delegation and you cover ancillary things like that. There's always events that you go to. So most conventions are pretty exciting. And now I don't know what they'll be like in the future. It's harder to get real excited about a virtual convention, but we'll see how they evolve.
Okay, what is the most challenging aspect of covering a convention?
Well, I think it's the most challenging aspect is probably trying to, slice off a piece of it that 100 other people aren't going to be writing about. At any convention, you're going to have your Washington bureau of the McClatchy or your New York Times or the Washington Post or USA Today. They're going to do the big stories. So you have to find stories that are more pertinent to your readers, in Charlotte and North Carolina. So for me, that's always like North Carolina delegates, people from the state. And, with any convention, there's probably 100 delegates from either party who go to the convention. And so every morning in a hotel, typically they have a breakfast meeting. They have a speaker come in. In Cleveland, I think um, the Trump kids came in to speak one morning at the breakfast, and Jeff Sessions, who went on to become Attorney General for a while, came in and spoke. And there's ways to do that, and you just sort of write about how the convention affects local people and how they affect the convention. Sometimes people from North Carolina play a role, either in writing a platform for the party or in doing something else.
Now, we touched on this a little bit, but now we're going to shift kind of towards COVID. And how has COVID impacted not only your job, but how you cover the conventions? I know you said that you weren't able to physically attend.
No, we weren't able to physically attend. Well, we had one person, a younger reporter who was in the pool. They call it the press pool. That was allowed in there, and they were pretty guarded. I mean, they had to sit in the back and sit far apart. This was a room in the Charlotte Convention Center. The whole convention had gotten shrunk down, and so he was in the convention center ballroom, but he was in the back. And if he couldn't get up and move around or talk to delegates, that was forbidden. In fact, if he had to go to the bathroom, he had to, raise his hand like you do in grade school, and somebody would come over and get him and take him to the bathroom because they were trying to be very careful about COVID. And so for most of us, and my other colleague and I, we wrote about Trump's speech and the Pence speech and all that, but we watched it. So we were both writing from home. We've been working from home since March. Um, it was March 10th, and I had gone on college for an event, and I came back. Actually, I just had to go back into the office to pick up my equipment and leave. And So we've been working from home ever since. But yeah, it's affected things. It affects how, candidates go out and campaign. You don't see a lot of in-person campaigning. Donald Trump was here a week ago, and I think he's going to be here this Saturday in Wilmington. He's having airport rally, and a lot of people come to the airport. Most of them don't wear a mask, and they certainly don't keep their distance from each other. So, when he comes to Charlotte next time, which he probably will, we'll probably go out and cover him in person. But it's a lot. It's just a lot different here. After the convention, and covering candidates, Joe Biden here since the spring, since before all this started. So.
Hmm. And due to the RNC not being able to take place like as planned, how do you think Charlotte was impacted financially? And how was the Charlotte Observer impacted, if they were impacted in any way?
Well, first, the city. I mean, the city had expected, originally they were expecting 50,000 people coming in. That includes 15,000 reporters, a couple thousand delegates, their families, friends. And then in any convention, you get a lot of corporate types. You get a lot of lobbyists and people who come in, and they would have spent money. They would have all stayed in hotels. They would have spent money in restaurants and bars. Bars would have been open. So there was a big economic impact. They anticipated over $200 million that would have come in if things had gone, but it didn't. And so all those bars and restaurants and hotels, which had been closed because of the pandemic, never got the shot in the arm that they expected. So that was not so good. The delegates when they did come, there were 336 delegates who came, about 500 people altogether with the convention. Stayed at the Westin Hotel, so the hotel did fine, but no place else really did. As far as the Observer, we had a long list of stories we planned to do about the convention, the delegates, the issues. We would have had people on the streets going to restaurants and talking about how the streets had changed and how, the economic impact of that. And so, we had a lot of stories.
And well, this topic kind of leaves COVID, but it's due to the current climate with politicians denigrating reporters and the press. Has it become harder to do your job overall? And how does it impact the coverage of political events?
That's a good question. It's some of it you just sort of, let go, enemy of the people and everything. And, that's just rhetoric and that's everybody. And if you do this job long enough, you have, you build up relationships on both sides. And, I'll talk to Republicans who, I've known for a long time, and they don't talk about that. They don't talk like that. Now there are a couple exceptions, and those people, do have there's some animosity, professional animosity, I guess, or tension in those with those people. And one example was I was reaching out to a congressional candidate last week. I was writing about. I was trying to get their reaction to something the president had said, about COVID in the Bob Woodward book, and kind of story we do all the time. And so I was trying to get reaction from the two Republican congressional candidates. They're in Congress, and their Democratic opponents, for a story. And so I talked to both Democrats, and neither one of the Republicans would call me back. And, one Republican, one of them just even told his communications people not to talk to me about it. And then, I wrote the story. I said they could not be reached and he wouldn't return phone calls and all that, which is true. and then he put something kind of snarky on Twitter about it, you know. So it's just it's made hard with some people, but most people not.
Mhm. And what do you think the covering the remainder of the election cycle will look like for this year? And what are your personal plans as far as going to events?
No, it depends on the events. I've been to like 2 or 3 events in the last couple months, frankly, and you know, one was a roundtable discussion that Republicans had in downtown Charlotte about it was about small businesses, and you know, the state party chairman was there, and I went there, and you know, I was told it would be, you know, a small group and able to keep distance, and it was, and I stayed. It was fine. And another one was a press conference I went to downtown before the convention, and you know, it was outdoors, and not many people were wearing masks or anything, but it was safe. So you know, our company has been great. You know, they say don't do anything that you don't feel comfortable doing. You know, they want us to be safe and feel safe, and you know, so that's sort of top of mind. And um, so I don't know what kind of event, but to be honest with you, it's the same reason the Democrats aren't doing a lot of in-person stuff in Illinois or South Carolina. You know, I talked to the Biden guy from North Carolina yesterday, and you know, well, Trump's coming in, doing airport events and everything, and Trump's kids have been here a few times, and Michael was in Wilmington last week or this week. Um, you know, the Biden people aren't doing that, and they say they're not doing it because of the health crisis. You know, so you know, we'll just have to see how things play out.
Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty. Now, this one's a little bit more for fun, but what are the best and worst moments you have had at a political convention?
Uh-huh. Best and worst moments. Um, you know, I think just the thrill of my first convention, which was in 1988 in Atlanta. Um, you know, you're on the floor, and this has happened a lot. You know, when you're on the floor of a convention, it's crowded with people, and you're standing, you know, right on top of people, and you know, sort of the first experience doing that is one that you won't forget. And and then you know, that's happened a few times, you know, and then I remember in 1996 I was at the Republican convention in San Diego, and you know, it was one of the moments when somebody was speaking, and Nancy Reagan was actually on screen giving a eulogy, sort of about her husband, and I was looked around and I was standing right next to Henry Kissinger, you know, on the floor, and you know, you just see a lot of people, and um, you have a lot of experiences like that. You know, the worst experience is probably staying up late at a convention on the last night, like in Atlanta, I remember, and then having to, you know, stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then leave early the next morning to drive back to Charlotte. And you know, it's a little bit of a quick turnaround for me. So, but they're fun, you know. And actually, the most fun convention was the one in Charlotte. You know, the Democratic convention in Charlotte in 2012, because you know, people were right here, and we saw all the stuff that goes into the convention, and it was, you know, in our hometown, and it was. We expected the same this year, but it wasn't, obviously. But you know, just to be and have it in your town, we had, you know, had a couple reporters staying at our house, and a friend sleeping on our living room floor, and you know, just to be part of it. It was pretty cool.
Well, that sounds like fun, like a sleepover with your coworkers.
Yeah, you know, it really was. And, you know, it's just so much that goes on around a convention, you know. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with Politico. Well, the people who used to work for Politico who now work for something called Axios. Well, Politico had a room downtown, you know, kind of an event space, and they had speakers come in, and, you know, we'd covered that in the morning, and you know, the mayor of Chicago was there, and you know, other people were there, and so it was a good. It was just a lot of fun. There were things like that, you know. A guy that I've come to know through conventions and other things, you know, he owns a ton of John F. Kennedy memorabilia, and he brought a little expo to a parking lot downtown, including a replica of Air Force One, and you know, the limousine that Kennedy was shot in, or one like it, and stuff like that. So it's all kinds of. It's kind of like a 4-day circus, you know,
Mm.
but it's fun.
So you must meet a lot of interesting people every time.
Yeah, you do. You meet you know, you just meet people, you know, broadcasters or political consultant types, and you know, people. You see people on the street who you recognize from TV or from the news, and you know, here they are walking down the street in your town. So it's kind of cool.
Mm. Okay, well, those are the end of my questions. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say to with the students or just anything in general.
No, it's you know, good luck to all of you in this environment when you graduate, and you know, be flexible, and you know, things will work out as they'll end sometime, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for taking your time and answering my questions. And I hope all goes well for you, but I'm going to sign up.
Thank you, Soli. Good luck to you.